Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted that you can join us today. I'm Helena Busby. I'm the Deputy Director of EU Strategy at the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. And I'd just like to say thank you so much for joining us for this webinar on moving SPS goods between Ireland and Great Britain, which is, I'm pleased to say, brought to you today by both the Irish and the UK governments. Before we get started, I would like to let you know that this event is being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube after the event. Before I get stuck in, can I thank the Irish officials, please, for their close collaboration, both on this event, but also on an extensive programme of technical engagement and testing over the last year or so. I've worked extremely closely with the Irish government for some months now, and it's a collaboration that is definitely working. I'd like to say a quick word on the border operating model. So I hope that you are aware that the UK government published an updated version of the border operating model on the 20th of July. This reflects the revised timetable for the introduction of the next stage of UK import requirements, as well as additional detail on policies and processes. This confirms that intrastat declarations will not be required from the 1st of January 2022. And additionally, there is increased guidance on the phasing out of EU identity cards for movement of people on the 1st of October 2022. You can find the border operating model on .gov.uk, and there is a section in the introduction which sets out what is new and what is changed, and I recommend that all of you take a look. So I will briefly run through what you can expect from this morning's session. My colleague Ella Beckett will give a presentation on the phased introduction of SPS import controls, which are coming into effect from the 1st of October. This will be followed by a demonstration of how to submit a pre-notification on Ipass, our national system for notification of the arrival of SPS goods into GB. You'll then have around half an hour for Q&A, and we'll try to get through as many questions as possible. I understand quite a few of which have been submitted in advance. At around 10 o'clock, we will hand over to Louise Byrne, Head of Brexit and International Trade Division at the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine, to hear some reflections on how trade between Ireland and GB has been since the 1st of January and Ireland's preparations for the next phase of GB import requirements. Lorna Mearney, Head of Veterinary International Trade Division at Dapham, will then update on the testing and internal trials which have been carried out and key learnings to ensure minimal disruption to supply chains. There will then be half an hour for questions for Irish government officials. One final housekeeping point. If you would like to ask any questions during the webinar, please can you use the comment box? And I will now hand over to Ella Beckett.
Thank you very much, Helena. Good morning, everyone. Great to be with you today. As Helena said, my name is Ella Beckett and I work for the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, and I lead the team responsible for working with EU member states to manage and resolve readiness issues. So today I'll be taking you through the UK government's timetable for the phased introduction of controls on sanitary and phytosanitary goods being exported from the EU to Great Britain. And as we know, these sessions, we always want to answer a lot of questions, so I'll not be able to cover everything in detail, but you will receive this slide pack after the event today to read in your own time. So we have received some questions in advance of this session, which we'll address after my presentation. And as Helena said, please use the chat function to indicate any area where you would like more clarification. And what we'll do is we'll try and respond in writing after the event if we don't have enough time to get through all of them during this session. Next slide, please. So In the interest of time, I'm not going to run through the existing sanitary and phytosanitary controls that come into force from January this year, but if you would like a reminder, the details are included here in this slide pack, which will be shared for you. So if possible, can we move straight to slide 6, titled SPS UK Announcement 11th of March? Perfect, thank you. So this slide gives you an overview of the timeline for all of the import controls coming in for SPS products from October of this year until March 2022. And I'm going to take you through these in more detail, starting with the controls of products of animal origin. So next slide, please. So to clarify what I mean by products of animal origin, it is any product that has come from an animal and that is eaten by humans. So this includes things like dairy, meat and fish. And from October 2021, these products of animal origin will need to be pre-notified on Ipass. Ipass is the new IT system that enables GB importers to notify the relevant authorities of the arrival of SPS goods into GB. This is something that your importer in Great Britain will need to do. I'll go into more detail of Ipath a little later. So products of animal origin will also need to be accompanied by the relevant health certificate. As the EU exporter, you're responsible for obtaining that health certificate, and you must ensure that you provide a copy of the health certificate to your importer in Great Britain so that they can upload it onto Ipass. And that makes the pre-notification and to enable remote documentary checks to take place. You should provide the copy of the certificate to your importer as soon as possible. I'll cover health certificates in more detail later in this presentation. So, certain composite products are exempt from SPS controls at the border under Article 6 of Regulation 2007-275. These are products that are a combination of processed products of animal origin and plants. But again, I'll cover this in a bit more detail on the next slide. So if we look ahead to January 2022, the requirements to pre-notify on Ipass and produce the relevant health certificate continue to apply. However, these products must also arrive at an established point of entry with an appropriate border control post for that product. So next slide, please. I will now be looking at composite products in a bit more detail, as this is an area that we often receive many questions about. Composite products are foods that contain both processed products of animal origin, POAO, and products of plant origin, and where the processing of the primary product is an integral part of the production of the final product. So to give you an actual example of what that can mean, that could include a ready meal lasagna or mayonnaise if it contains more than 50% egg. So composite products must follow the stage requirements of POAO that I've just set out. However, there are a few exemptions. Some goods are exempt if they contain less than 50% processed animal product, no meat product, and if they meet the requirements set out in legislation. If your goods contain any meat product or more than 50% animal product, they must be pre-notified using Ipass, accompanied by a health certificate, and follow the phased approach set out for products of animal origin. Next slide, please. The controls for animal byproducts are very similar to those of products of animal origin. So from October 2021, animal byproducts not for human consumption must be accompanied by an export health certificate or other official documentation and pre-notified on Ipass before arrival at the border. So only products with certain CN codes will need to enter via border control posts from January 2022. Importers will therefore need to check if the CN code for their product is listed in Regulation 2019-2007 in order to determine whether their commodity must be imported via a point of entry with an appropriate BCP, border control post. It is important to note that animal byproducts include everything that comes in from an animal that is not for human consumption. So that includes skins or hides from the slaughterhouse process, So if you do trade in these products, I would advise you to look at these slides in a bit more detail after today's event. If we can now move on to the next slide, please. Since January of this year, live animals and germinal products have been required to pre-notify using Ipass at least 1 working day before the expected time of arrival at the point of entry, and animals had to be accompanied by a health certificate. Your importer in Great Britain must supply the EU exporter or official veterinarian with the unique notification number that is produced when the importer pre-notifies the UK's Animal and Plant Health Agency about the import via Ipass. As the exporter, you must add the unique notification number to the commercial documentation or health certificate. Physical checks on live animals are carried out at destination. These measures continue to apply, however, from the 1st of January 2022, and there will be new requirements for germinal products to enter via an established point of entry with an appropriate border control post. So from March 1st, 2022, live animals must also enter via an established point of entry with an appropriate BCP for documentary identity and physical checks. High-risk live animals will continue to be checked at 100%. Next slide, please. Thank you. This slide sets out the phasing of controls for plants and plant products. I hope. Flicking on. So currently, only high priority plants are subject to import controls, and the next set of changes you need to be aware of are those coming into force from the 1st of January 2022, when high priority plants will no longer undergo physical and identity checks at places of destination. These checks will instead take place at an appropriate border control post. Also, from January, all regulated plants and plant products will need to follow the requirements for pre-notification and be accompanied by a phytosanitary certification. From March 2022, physical and identity checks on all regulated plants and plant products will be carried out at border control posts. So the next slide should be on Ipass. Excellent, thank you. Apologies, we might have got confused on a couple of slides there. So this slide gives a bit more information on Ipath, which, as I've mentioned, is the new IT system for pre-notifying the arrival of SPS products into GB. My colleague Angela Cooper will take you through a demonstration at the end of this presentation to show you how to raise a notification in Ipath. So I'll not go into too much detail now. However, pre-notification on Ipath is an action for the importer in Great Britain to take. As the EU exporter, you must provide the GB importer with a copy of the health certificate so they can upload an electronic copy to Ipass. This system and process of pre-notification will allow for remote documentary checks to take place from October 2021 in order to preserve the flow of goods into GB and prevent any delays at the border. If we go to the next slide, please. Brilliant. A quick word on then the pre-notification times. So for the movement of live animals, the importer of Great Britain will need to pre-notify on Ipass at least 1 working day in advance of the goods arrival at the point of entry. So for plants and plant products, importers need to submit import notifications at least 4 hours prior to arrival for roll-on, roll-off and air movements, or at least 1 working day prior to arrival by all other modes of transport, along with the phytosanitary certificate. So pre-authorization by DEFRA or the Animal and Plant Health Agency of animal byproducts prior to any imports taking place may also be required. Next slide, please. I will now give you some more information on the SPS documentation that needs to travel with exports of products and of animal origin to Great Britain. So health certificates must already accompany any product of animal origin under safeguard measures. Where safeguard measures apply, there is a safeguard version of the health certificate that must be used. You will need to continue to use the safeguard versions of certificates where necessary. From October 2021, a health certificate will be required to accompany consignments of products of animal origin for human consumption and animal byproducts not for human consumption. It is the exporter's responsibility to obtain these health certificates. The health certificate will be issued to the exporter by the competent authority in the exporting country. A certifying officer authorised by the competent authority must complete the official certificate. The certifying officer is an official veterinarian or official inspector as defined by the relevant EU retained legislation. They must have clearly completed all the designated fields. Any official SPS documents that are required to accompany the health certificate, such as any additional attestations or lab results, will be specified on the relevant health certificate. Other documentation may be required depending on the commodity, such as a catch certificate for marine caught fish. There are model health certificates that are available on gov.uk, and you're able to use these to check the specific requirements for your commodity. You should note that these are only models and the certificates will be issued by the relevant competent authority. There may be rare instances where a harmonised health certificate is not available for your product of animal origin. If you can't identify an appropriate health certificate, you should speak with your importer and you can check gov.uk for a general licence. Next slide, please. I'd like to briefly cover changes to phasing for marketing standards for certain products and also for organics. The UK is taking the opportunity to have a single date for the introduction of fruit and vegetable marketing standards controls that matches the date for the introduction of phytosanitary checks. So for the import of EU hops, EU certificates will be accepted for release into UK free circulation until the 1st of January 2022. There are requirements for 1st of March 2022, but from the 1st of January 2022, organic products imported from the EU to GB will require a certificate of inspection. Next slide, please. I'll now clarify a few controls on wine being imported from the EU into Great Britain. All the wine sector products, including grape must and wine vinegar imported to GB from the EU, and that does include wine that has originated from outside of the EU, can travel without having to produce a TCA certificate or VI1 certificate until the 31st of December 2021. From the 1st of January 2022 onwards, the situation will change as follows. Finished wine of EU origin will be able to travel to Great Britain under the simplified certificate set out in the Technical Barrier to Trade Annex 5 on trade in wine. And wine of non-EU origin or grape must and vinegar of EU origin should use the VI1 certificate as set out in the Retained Regulation 2018-273. Situations where you do not need to provide a VI1 to import wine of any origin to Great Britain remain in place. So this includes for shipments of less than 100 litres and shipments from one private individual to another of up to 30 litres. So next slide, please. So that brings us to the end of the SPS requirements. And in addition to these, I'd like to flag that there are some customs requirements to comply with. So importers and exporters must complete the UK and EU customs declarations. We have included a couple of basic slides on the current customs requirements for GB, particularly around delayed declarations. So throughout 2021, importers of non-controlled goods from the EU can make a simplified declaration in their own electronic records and follow this up with a supplementary declaration up to 175 days after import, known as delayed declarations. So this slide and the next slide goes into more detail. And as I've said, the slides will be circulated after the event so that you have the links to the latest guidance and details on how to seek additional support from HMRC. If you do have any customs related questions, please feel free to put these in the comment chat box because we do have a customs specialist who will be joining us on the line later today. So next slide, please. And then the one after. Perfect. So I will end with an overview of the key actions that EU exporters need to take from the 1st of October 2021 and the 1st of January 2022. So for products of animal origin and animal byproducts from the 1st of October, you will need to obtain the relevant health certificate for your product, provide your importer in Great Britain with a copy of the completed health certificate as soon as it's available, and ensure the original certificate travels with the consignment. And then for plants from the 1st of January 2022, you will need to ensure that a phytosanitary certificate travels with the consignment and that the importer in Great Britain submits a pre-notification. So thank you very much for your attention listening to this presentation today. I will now hand over to my colleague, Angela Cooper, who's going to take us through a demonstration on Ipaths. So welcome, Angela.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Ella. I'll just start to share my screen. Hopefully everyone can see that. So I'm going to walk through the process to raise a notification for October. So to find Ipaths, it's located on gov.uk. So this is so if you just search Ipaths, it'll bring up the start page. So if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll find the Start Now button. So you just click that, and then it takes you through to Ipaths. So the first time that you use Ipaths, you will need to create a government gateway ID, and you do this by clicking this hyperlink here. To speed up the process today, I'm going to use my existing account, so you would just add your government gateway ID there and your password, and then click sign in. Once into Ipaths, this is known as a dashboard, and as you can see here, these are all the notifications that have been raised for my account. If you were looking for the reference numbers, these are located here, and it details some of the just high-level parts of the notification, so you can easily see what you're looking for. If you need to search for anything, you just use this area here. There's lots of different ways to search to locate the notifications that you need to see. So click on create a new notification. For this demo, I'll create one for products of animal origin. So I click this here and click save and continue. Here you choose the country that it's arriving from. And for this demonstration, I'll choose Austria. So if you were to select Australia here, that would take you through the cheddar route, which is in place already for the rest of the world imports. And click save and continue. So if you already know your commodity code, you can add that here. If you don't know the actual code, you can find it in the commodity tree. So you click down the tree until you find the one that's relevant for your import. So this page is dynamic, so depending on which commodity code you select, it will bring all the relevant options, so the different species and the different commodities types here. Select whichever is relevant, and as you can see, it changes the species as well. So I'll just select this one for this demonstration, click save and continue. Now you need to enter the weight, and this is the net weight, not the gross weight. Click save and continue. Now you need to add the arrival date. So if I put it's arriving tomorrow, and click save and continue. Now you're asked the reason that you're bringing the import in. So generally it'll be internal market. For transits, the next page, it will ask you to enter the exit BCP and also the date of exit. But for this demonstration, I'll choose internal market. This is where you now upload your health certificate. So here you select health certificate, Then you would add your reference for the health cert and the date that it was issued. And then you would click Add Attachment, and it will take you to your desktop to find the document. Please make note of the different rules. If it's too big or in the incorrect format, then it won't allow you to upload it. So click Choose File. And then click Next. Now you can see that your document's attached, so you can download it here. So we do advise just to double check that it has been uploaded correctly. So if you click download, it will bring your document up, and you can make sure that it's readable, just so there's no issues. And click Save and Continue. On this page here, so this is known as your the address page. As you can see at the top of the screen, there's a hyperlink here. We do advise before you need to start notifying to go in there and pre-populate your addresses. So if you use them frequently, click on Address Book, and you can preload those before you need to start notifying. And then will speed up the process. So I'll take you through anyway. So click to add a place of origin. Now for October, the approved establishments need to be entered manually. Again, you can add those to your address book, so you're not having to add it in every time. If you needed to add one, you click Create a new place of origin here, and then it will allow you to go to your address book and add the address. I've got one preloaded, and this is how it looks when you've uploaded it to your address book. So click Select. Now I'll add the importer details. So again, this is all preloaded into your address book, and I've got one uploaded here, so click Select. And then finally add the place of destination. So now you can see all the addresses are populated, and click Save and Continue. So this is where you add your port of entry. So this is a mandatory field, but please make sure that you use the correct spelling. And click Save and Continue. So this is your final page. So this is your review page. So as you can see here, this has used all my registration details, so there's no need to populate anything on there. So if there is anything wrong, so like you've used the incorrect email address, you can click on Manage Account at the top, where you can update your details. So this is your final step to be able to review the information that you've entered. As you can see all down here, you can click Change, and it will take you back to the notification to change it. So this is the point that you now complete, so I click Accept and Send. So one of the areas, so we obviously sometimes you don't have the health certificate when you need to create your notification, so you can go back in to Ipass at a later point and add that in if you don't have it immediately. And so when you update your notification, this version number here will change to version 2. So this is your reference number and for your import notification. So if I'll return to the dashboard, and if I enter that here, you can see that's my notification here. So there will be changes, and there'll be additional information required for January, but this demonstration today is just based on what's needed for October. Thank you, Ella. I'll hand back over to yourself for the Q&As.
Thank you very much, Angela, for that very, very helpful demo on Ipaths. So we're now going to run through the pre-sent questions, and I am very happy to have on the line today Angela, who we just heard from, who is the Ipass project manager, Jack Tilbury, who's the policy delivery and engagement lead for imports of animals and their products, Will Sermon, head of strategy and delivery for plant health, and Flavia Munteanu, who is senior policy advisor from HMRC. So I should flag that we'll not be addressing all the questions on the land bridge during this event, but we look forward to sharing more information in August when we'll have finalised communications. So we won't be responding to the land bridge questions today, but look forward to responding in August. So what I'll do is we were sent these questions and I'll run through them and then introduce the right policy lead on the line who will respond to them. And if we aren't able to go through them today, as we've said before, we will come back to you. So questions from Irish industry stakeholders. Number one is, can Irish businesses register for access to peaches and Ipaths in order to complete BCP pre-notification and upload the EHC where required as per? Must the businesses have an office presence in GB? So I'm going to invite Jack and then Will to answer this question, as Jack can respond to the product of animal origin element and Will to the plant element. So Jack.
Thanks, Ella, and good morning, everyone. So for Ipaths and for importing animal products, yes, you will be able to register for Ipaths, but we do state that the person responsible for the consignment should have a UK address, and they will need to be detailed on that application in Ipaths.
Hi Ella, it's Jason from the Plant Health Policy team. I think unfortunately Will has been pulled away just for shortly, but I'll be able to answer that question. It's the same response as Jack, in that yes, you will need to have a UK address to be able to put a pre-notification on peach or Ipaths. What I can do is I can send a guidance document that we published around this, and I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you very much, Jason, and welcome. Apologies I didn't introduce you at the start. So next we have a question. So from the 1st of October 2021, must the original EHC accompany the product of animal origin and the high-risk food not of animal origin? So aware that the colour scanned copy must be uploaded by the GB importer to Ipass, but what this stakeholder wants to know is, what about the original EHC? So Jack, if I can turn to you for that response, please.
Yeah, thanks, Ella. So yes, they are right. A scanned copy will need to be uploaded to Ipaths, but it is a legal requirement that the original EHC travels with the consignment. And so yes, it will need to travel with the consignment from the 1st of October.
Excellent, very clear. Thanks, Jack. So we also have asked a question about there are different client queries that come to DEFRA, and what this stakeholder wants to know is there actually a central FAQ document that can be developed so that we can respond in bulk? Jack, would you like to add something to that?
So I can only talk for the animal import side, but yes, we are developing an FAQ document that we'll make available shortly. It should be ready to share with everyone in the next couple of weeks, and that you'll be able to go there and address all your questions that you might have about the changes coming in October and then January.
That's excellent, thank you. And Jason, do add anything to that question about a central FAQ document if you would like to from a plant's perspective.
Yeah, sure, no worries, Ella. So again, what I'll do is I'll pop a link in the live Q&A. Is we do have a published sort of Q&A covering, like you say, imports, exports, and things like plant passporting. One thing I will just quickly flag is that we're doing a bit of a revamp of that Q&A at the minute. So we're just in the process of updating it. But I'll pop a link in the Q&A.
Excellent, thank you very, very much, Jason and Jack. So another question is, when the importer is completing the pre-notification on Ipass, does the EHC have to be uploaded at this stage, or can it be uploaded at a later time? So I invite Angela to respond to this question, please.
Thanks, Ella. Yes, I think I did cover it in the demo, but you get a different version number when you come back to Ipass and upload it later. So there's no restrictions. You don't need to do it at the point of submission, so you can do it at later points.
Brilliant, thank you, very clear. So another question is, are there plans in place in terms of an automated interface between Ipass and the Traces system, both in terms of e-certification and automated notification from one system to the other? Are you able to advise regarding timelines, if applicable? So Angela, I think you're probably best placed to respond to this query too.
Yes, so DEFRA does have some accelerated plans in place to introduce cloning with the EU, so the health certificate can be automatically uploaded into Ipass using the details on that, but we are dependent on working very closely with the Commission on this, so the aim is for the start of next year. But like I said, we are very dependent on working closely with the EU, so we can't guarantee that timeline at the moment. We're also working on a trader API to allow notifications to be automatically uploaded as well. Again, this is aiming for the end of the year.
Excellent, thank you very much, Angela. So I think the next question, part of it was answered in Angela's presentation also, but I will read it out and then we can ask if Angela has anything further to add. So this one is, can DEFRA indicate the various fields or information that must be completed on the Ipass notification? Also, clarity would be welcome in terms of required pre-notification timelines. Anything to add, Angela?
Nothing to add, no, thank you.
No problem, thank you very much.
Sorry, Ella, I can just come in on the timelines
Absolutely.
for pre-notification. I think it might come up again this morning as well. So for animal products from the 1st of October, we are aware that obviously the pre-notification time is of importance to the industry. We are just finalising what that needs to be for the 1st of October, working with trade and with the Port Health authorities who will be conducting the checks to make sure that we're taking into account the impacts of trade, but maintaining the biosecurity measures that we need in place. And we will be able to share that notification time with you very shortly. And sorry that we aren't able to do so this morning.
Thank you, Jack. That's great. So thanks to Angela and Jack for that question. So the next question is, what is the process for sending samples of products of animal origin to GB post 1st of October, retail, scientific and medical? So obviously in the presentation we did run through some processes, but Jack, do you have a response for those other three elements?
Yeah, sure. So if you're importing samples for retail, then the same controls will apply from the 1st of October. So they'll follow the same phasing at each stage. So from the 1st of October, pre-notification and health certificate, and then the full controls from the 1st of January. Where the product is for research, we do suggest you get in touch with the Animal and Plant Health Agency, as there may be some variation to those depending on the product and what what its intended use is. So it's difficult to answer to that one because it is very much case by case and dependent on the product. For medical products, it again is dependent on the product. Broadly, if it is covered by MHRA or VMD legislation, or it's a finished medical product, then it's possible that that exemption from SPS controls will apply. But if it is just, for example, a nutritional feed product, it is still just considered products of animal origin. It's not a licensed medicine, and the full controls would apply. But again, in this situation, we recommend that you speak to either your certifying officer or the competent authority who will be able to advise you on the specifics for each product.
Excellent, thanks very much, Jack, very clear. So another question is the container or fridge number more appropriate than truck registration number for the EHC? Jack, I don't know if you can respond to this one.
So I think this will depend on the mode of transport. So If we are talking about load on, load off containers, then the container number is usually more appropriate than a truck registration number, but obviously not in other cases. Again, suggest that you discuss it with the certifying officer, and they'll understand the process, and you can talk through the modes of transport with them, and they'll be able to advise.
Excellent, thanks very much. Okay, so this question is probably for Angela. So it says, in a recent joint DEFRA EU Commission webinar, DEFRA indicated that the EU exporter could notify the BCP by email of a change in vehicle. This could result in a significant volume of emails to GB BCPs to alert them of updated haulage details. And the question is, could this be done via the Ipath system instead? So Angela, over to you.
So from October, it's not a requirement to add that detail into Ipaths, but from January you will have that ability because it is on the CHED that will be used from the 1st of January. I'm not sure if Jack, you want to add anything further to that?
So no, I don't think there's much more to add. I think the other thing you can do is just contact the BCP at the point of entry as well.
Excellent. So if a product is certified into a GB-based import plant from a Republic of Ireland export plant and dispatched to multiple customers from that GB plant, what paperwork will definitely require that import site to maintain? So I believe for this question, we are going to take it away and respond in writing. On to the next question we have. It says it concerns where goods subject to official controls are returned by an Irish importer to a UK supplier for commercial reasons. And this stakeholder would like to understand as to what the required process will be for such SPS goods returning to GB post the 1st of October 2021. So Jack, it would be great if you can respond to this one.
Sorry, I was still on mute there. So I think this will depend. Sorry, I might have slightly misheard the question. It would depend whether this is a good that's been exported. Has this been exported from Britain to Ireland and then returned, or is it the other way around? Sorry, Ella. No
problem at all. So this is to do with the products returned by an Irish importer to a UK supplier for commercial reasons. And so they'd like to know what required process will be for SPS goods returning to GB post 1st of October.
Thanks, Ella. That's helpful. I actually am going to have to take that one away. I do know that the guidance is available on gov.uk, so I will find the link and I will share it so everyone can access it now. But off the top of my head, I cannot fully remember. I think it will depend on the reason for the rejection. If it is for commercial reasons, then it will need to follow the import controls. Obviously, if it's been rejected because it hasn't passed any SPS checks, then it may need to be destroyed rather than returned. But I will get that guidance and I'll share the link so that everybody has access to it.
Thank you, Jack. That's brilliant. I'll also invite Jason to respond from a plant's perspective.
Yeah, so if the goods are sort of rejected for commercial decisions when they're in the Republic, then yes, when they are returned to GB, you will need to make a sort of an Ipath/Peach pre-notification and upload the sort of the original GB phytosanitary certificate that accompanied those goods, and then the sort of competent authority will then undertake a sort of a risk assessment as to whether those goods need to be inspected sort of upon return. So yes, you will need to make a pre-notification.
Brilliant, thank you both. So SPS goods which are sent to Great Britain to be consolidated before being exported to other third countries. Such goods must remain under bond when moving into the UK and entered a bonded warehouse for consolidation before being exported. If such SPS goods are unloaded in bonded warehouses in GB, will they be required to be certified by the UK authorities for export to the rest of the world? So a fairly technical question. is there somebody on the line that would be able to respond to that question?
Sorry, Ella, I think we might have to take it away because it touches on some elements of transit and exports requirements, whereas at least for me, I could only comment on the importing side.
Excellent, thank you, Jack. That sounds like a good idea. Let's take it away and come back to it. So the next question is, if I have a query and there is no BCP established at the port of entry, where can I address queries? Is there a central information line? I do believe one of these might be being set up, but I'll invite anyone on the line to respond in their areas if they know for sure and can direct our attendees.
I was just going to say, Ella, it's Jason again. So if it's related to sort of plants and plant products and the phytosanitary requirements, I can put sort of the contact details within sort of for APHA, who will deal with sort of any queries related to imports, recognising that obviously if there isn't a BCP at the point of entry, that there'll be sort of limited things that they can do, but they should be able to advise you appropriately. So I will pop the contact details in the chat again.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jason. That's great. And we can come back to you for other areas and contact details as well. So I have, when is Peaches transitioning to Ipaths? So Jason, Jack, I'm not sure if you're able to comment on that. Jason, that would be great.
Yeah, so at the minute, we're obviously looking across the sort of the next couple of months to move across from using the import pre-notification system known as Peach to Ipaths. What will happen in the next couple of months is that you'll be contacted as that migration occurs. So if you're sort of already registered on Peach, then obviously we have your contact details. Again, I think in one of the Q&As that I provided earlier on, but again, I'll put it in the chat again, is there's some published information around sort of what will happen on the plant health portal. So I'll pop that in the chat again and people can have a quick read of that as it contains sort of the information they need in there.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jason. That'd be great. So I have a question which we maybe touched on a bit before, but in case any colleagues want to add anything further, what is the rejections policy for SPS goods imported to GB from Ireland?
So I don't think this question will be one for us, Ella. If it's been sent to Britain and it's been rejected here, it will be up for it will be just down to our Irish colleagues to say what the requirements are for those goods coming back.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Jack. That's great. So for organics, is an IT system planned to replace the interim manual paper-based system? So I invite Angela to respond to that question.
Thanks, Ella. Yes, so it is in our strategy future plans, but at the moment there's no timeline available, so it will move across to Ipaths in the future.
Brilliant. Thank you, Angela. So this question is about prepared consumer foods. So are there owners in Dapham and DEFRA for the prepared consumer foods category? And can we work together to ensure that we have an end-to-end solution that is fully tested and works? This group could also be a point of escalation to resolve issues post 1st of October and 1st of January. I can imagine, Jack, that you wouldn't be able to respond in total to that question, but I invite you to comment potentially on the prepared consumer foods category.
Thanks, Ella. I think you know the request for us to have full end-to-end solutions. I mean, we are doing everything we can to make sure that the end-to-end process is understood by everyone, and we will continue to do so, and make sure that, you know, resources and educated materials are available before October and January, and are always happy to work with people to help make sure that they're ready to meet the requirements that come in.
Excellent, thank you very much, Jack. So next question is, there have been a number of conversations regarding the requirement for the vehicle registration VIN number to be entered on all the relevant paperwork, including the EHC. This attendee would like us to clarify how this will work for roll-on, roll-off trailers, which are unaccompanied on the ferries. So the nature of the operation is that various trucks collect the trailers at the factory and bring them to the port in Ireland, and then in the UK, different trucks will collect the trailers from the port and bring them to the warehouse. This attendee says it's not operationally possible to assign a vehicle to each trailer. Jack, would you be able to comment on that?
Yeah, thanks, Ella. So I think this is similar to what I said earlier. So for these type of movements, I do believe that for those health certificates you can use the container number, but I think it's clearly you know, a point of interest for today's session. So what I think would be helpful is we'll just confirm that as well with one of the veterinary advisors on our end, and we'll provide a proper response in writing for those situations, so that everyone's got access to that and is confident going ahead before the 1st of October.
That sounds really helpful. Thanks very much, Jack. So the next question is about cheese pizza. So it is, please confirm, is a cheese pizza a composite or dairy product, and is a meat pizza a composite, or is it a meat product and dairy product, as in both cases the topping is not cooked? Jack, you might be able to respond on pizza.
Yes, thank you. It's my favourite topic. Yes, pizza is a composite product if the product contains processed products of animal origin. So that is the key part there. So it must contain processed products of animal origin in order for it to meet the definition of a composite product. If it doesn't contain processed products of animal origin, it wouldn't be possible for it to meet the definition of a composite product. But for particularly for pizzas, I think I would always recommend that you speak either to the BCP at the point of entry or with the certifying officer at the point of export to make sure that the product is being certified properly, as it will be very much dependent on the specific ingredients and the processing for the individual product. And without ingredients lists and those details, it's not always possible to give a concrete answer. So just to repeat, if it contains processed POAO, it can meet the definition of a composite product, but I'd always recommend that you speak to the BCP or the certifying officer about the individual product.
Excellent, thank you very much, Jack. So the next question is, should exporting Irish FBOs all be registered on Ipass in any case, and how do they do this? So that might be a Jack and Angela combo potentially, but if we go to Jack first. Yes, they'll need to be registered on Ipass if they need to make a pre-notification. If they're not going to make a notification and the GB importer is making that notification, there would be no need to register for Ipaths. And I believe there's a video online, and there will be some sessions made available for anyone who does need to know how to register. But perhaps Angela could add a bit more on that.
Thanks, Jack. Yes, so we do have, so currently on the Ipath start page, there is a user guide on how to register. So the main items that you do need is your company's house detail if you're a limited company. I can also share a link to a video as well into the chat to help people. And like Jack says, I will be running webinar sessions to walk through the process step by step next month.
That's brilliant. Thank you both for that helpful answer, and looking forward to those webinars. So the next question is, what is the timeline for the pre-notification of imports to UK and transit through the UK on Ipath? So I believe, Jack, we potentially mentioned this earlier, but is there anything you'd like to add?
No, nothing to add on my earlier answer. So just to reiterate, I suppose, you know, we are aware this is an important part of the process for October, and everybody is eager for confirmation, and we will make it available as soon as possible. We are just working with the Port Health authorities and with industry to make sure we are setting a notification time that balances trade requirements and also meets our biosecurity measures and requirements.
Excellent, thank you very much. And so I am now going to check to see if we have, this could be a question for our HMRC colleagues, but we have it on import licensing requirements. So for EU-wide imports, tariff details, the import license requirements per product code, where are GB import license requirements listed? So I don't know if we have somebody on the line that can respond to this question, or we can take it away.
Can you hear me, Ella? Hi.
Yes, brilliantly.
Oh, good, good. I was struggling to get in. Can you just repeat that, because it unmuted me and then it basically ate part of the question up?
Absolutely no problem at all. So it's to do with import licensing requirements. So for EU-wide imports, tariff details, the import license requirements per product code. So where are GB import license requirements listed?
Well, so I'm not sure this is entirely an HMRC question, but I'll check it out with our tariffs team and provide a written response. There is a list of various requirements per product on gov.uk, but I'm not entirely sure it falls entirely to HMRC. It could be BAYS as well. So let's pick that up offline and I'll provide a written response.
That sounds very helpful. Thank you very much. So yeah, we will get back to you and coordinate with our other government departments to respond to that. Okay, brilliant. So I've got another one on vehicle identification. So in terms of vehicle identification, a truck number will not be known until the tractor unit arrives at the facility to collect a container or trailer. So this truck may only bring the trailer or container unit to the port of Ireland, and a different truck may carry the load to GB. So the requirement for a truck number will therefore result in discrepancies between the EHC and the actual truck entering the GB BCP. So what this attendee is hoping that we can advise is what approach it will take if there is a discrepancy between the truck registration number entering the GB BCP, which is the same as that notified on Ipass, versus a different registration number on the EHC. So Jack, I'm not sure if you're able to respond to this.
Yeah, thanks, Ella. So in a situation like this, the truck number that's on the health certificate will need to be correct. It will need to be the one that enables the health certificate to be certified and signed. If the truck number changes during the journey, then you would need to notify the BCP for the point of entry, or you can update the Ipass notification from January. So I think Angela mentioned earlier it's a requirement from January and on the Ipass notification. What that means for October, where there is no point of entry, there is no BCP requirements from October, you just need to ensure that it is correct at the time of issue for the health certificate, and then from January it will be important that you do update the notification or contact the BCP, because if it doesn't align, it can be the basis for failing the documentary check, which will increase the likelihood of a BCP intervention, meaning either identity or physical checks.
Excellent, that's brilliant. Thank you very much, Jack. So I believe that the DEFRA section is now to time. So I will pause there, and as stated at the start of the presentation, we'll look to address the remaining questions that we weren't able to respond just in our section after we conclude today. So many thanks for listening to our session, and to all our specialists who joined us today to respond to queries. So I'd now like to hand over to my Irish colleagues to take us through the next part of the webinar. So many thanks, and I welcome Louise.
Good morning, Ella, and good morning, colleagues in both Ireland and in the UK, and also to all of the stakeholders who are joining our webinar today. I understand that there have been some technical difficulties. I think we had up on 700 people who had registered to attend this webinar. And I know that people are working frantically in the UK to see if that can be, whatever the technical issues can be addressed. But just to advise that the webinar is being recorded, and we will make it available to people after today's event, and to all people who had registered. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen, so just bear with me for one moment, please. Thank you. So there we go. Okay, so my name is Louise Byrne. I'm head of Brexit and International Trade Division, and today I'm going to talk to you about trading between Ireland and Great Britain. As well as getting ready for the 1st of October, I am also going to reflect on the Trade and Cooperation Agreement and on our experience in trade since the 1st of January this year. So, as people know, the EU-UK Trade and Cooperation Agreement was agreed on the 24th of December last year. And of course, the agreement has avoided the some of the worst outcomes of a no-deal Brexit. So under the agreement, we have no tariffs or quotas on goods traded between the EU and the UK, provided, of course, that they can prove origin. And although tariffs have been avoided, the way trade happens between the EU and Great Britain has changed. It is no longer frictionless. There is an SPS chapter in the TCA, however, no equivalence mechanisms were agreed. Therefore, all imported animals, plants and food must comply with relevant EU and UK requirements, resulting in trade friction. The EU SPS rules have applied since the 1st of January. There are customs formalities that apply to trade in both directions. Outside of the EU, the UK government is now setting its own import policy and is adopting a phased approach to those import controls, the first phase of which commenced on the 1st of January 2021. The requirements in the main are that the exporter must be on an approved list of establishments eligible to export to the UK. The consignment must be pre-notified on Ipass, and there's a requirement for a health cert. Of course, the protocol on Ireland, Northern Ireland, which was agreed between the EU and the UK government, means that no checks happen between Ireland and Northern Ireland, other than those that were already in place and that were required by EU law. The TCA includes an extensive governance framework, including a partnership council, which has overall responsibility for the agreement. There's a trade partnership committee which deals with almost all aspects of trade and includes a number of trade specialised committees, including on SPS. Apologies now, but something has happened. Can people hear me?
I can hear you very well.
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Can you see my slides? Because I'm not
Yeah.
seeing my slides.
We can still see them.
Okay, that's fine. That's great if you can. Fantastic. Okay, so just in relation to the trade specialised committees, it includes one on SPS matters, and that SPS trade specialised committee is expected to meet in September or October this year. In terms of the Irish agri-food trade for 2020, these figures are based on some CSO statistics. So Ireland's total agri-food exports for 2020 totaled 14.2 billion, while our imports totaled 10.2 billion. The CSO stats show that the UK is and will continue to be a significant economic partner for Ireland's agri-food sector. It's clear since the graph shows the trend in that trade since the decision of the UK to leave the EU in 2016, and our exports of agri-food products to the United Kingdom totaled 5.3 billion in 2020, which was a 4% decrease on our 2019 stats, and it accounted for 37% of total Irish agri-food exports in 2020. That was down from a high of 41% in 2018. Imports from the United Kingdom accounted for 45% of total Irish agri-food imports in 2020. So obviously, the trade flows with the UK have been impacted by the decision of the UK to leave the EU, and in particular since the 1st of January. So the trade flows with the UK remain below previous levels, with operators and supply chains adapting to the new trading environment. Exports of agri-food products to the UK are recovering compared to earlier in the year. And from January to May this year, we see that Irish agri-food exports to the UK are up 4%, while imports are down 29% compared to the same period. The imports from Great Britain are down more, and our imports from Northern Ireland are up. It's clear to me that there are a number of factors influencing trade statistics and trade data, which of course are very volatile and are influenced by many factors, including COVID, stockpiling effects, people adjusting to the new regulatory environment, and it's clear that more trade data is going to be needed to provide a clearer picture on the Brexit impacts. In terms of our preparations for and our operational experience in implementing EU import requirements since the 1st of January. So firstly, to say there was significant investment in infrastructure, staff and IT resources by the state in order to implement the EU import requirements. There was also significant investment by stakeholders in preparing for those changes, and good efforts were made to comply with the regulations since the 1st of January. It's fair to say that there have been some delays in trade flows, and state agencies have been engaged in addressing underlying issues, including engaging directly with companies and representative groups. And it's clear to me and to people who do engage that the more you engage with the authorities, the smoother the flow through the ports. We've had a very strong feedback loop from our stakeholders across multiple fora, and including with the UK authorities. This has been very important in terms of ironing out some issues that occurred in the early days since the 1st of January. And that engagement has continued since. And now we're flipping that engagement around with obviously a significant focus on the 1 October requirements. I'd like to point attendees to a webinar that was held on the 7th of July, and the recording is available for people to watch that. There were some very useful learnings for everybody in that webinar, and I'd encourage people to look at it. In terms of the scale of the challenge, and I say this because in the previous hour, we've heard a lot about the importance of contacting, or a few references to contacting the BCP to get clarification. If I have learned anything over the past year, it is about the importance of clarity on the detailed granular requirements. And that is essential for both the authorities and for stakeholders in order to prepare fully and in order to meet those requirements, the UK import requirements. By way of example, we carried out around 3,500 checks at Dublin Port on imports from third countries in 2020. Since the 1st of January, around 29,000 common health entry documents were lodged for Dublin Port, and Dapham has dealt with over 44,000 emails and 8,000 phone calls in that period. That is a very significant challenge. And if you turn that on its head, and if I'm in the UK and I have to be dealing with that level of queries, it really emphasises the importance of having absolute clarity around what the requirements are, including at the granular detail. And I'm going to pick up on that in one moment. In terms of the actual operational experience itself, this is an example of the CHEDs that were processed per week across different commodity types by the Department of Agriculture. This is all of the CHEDs received at ports. And there were around 32,500 CHEDs received since the beginning of the year, and about 72% of those had an origin in Great Britain. The most common product type to be inspected were composite products, accounting for nearly 8,000 of the 32,000 CHEDs received since the beginning of the year. There was around 2,400 businesses or individuals that have imported goods of interest to Dapham, and around 363 operators responsible for the consignment while it's moving. Of those 32,500 CHEDs that were lodged, around 29,000 were lodged for Dublin Port, so clearly that's the busiest port. In terms of the rejected consignments, we've only had around 120 since the beginning of the year, and the vast majority of the rejected consignments were as a result of documentary errors. And Lorna is going to pick up this in her presentation on the trials to emphasise the importance of accuracy and attention to detail in completing the documents for the consignment that's travelling. In terms of our ongoing preparations to meet the UK import requirements, there are a range of activities to support Irish businesses exporting to GB are happening across government. There has been significant investment in IT systems in order to generate export health certs. Again, Lorna will pick this up in her presentation. We are obviously using the Traces system for exporting health certs for some commodities. That is an EU system. I would call out that, you know, we have seen that systems fail from time to time. We've witnessed that on the Irish side in terms of our experience since the 1st of January. And I think we have acted very swiftly with our colleagues in revenue and across government to address those operational issues. But it is a call out to the EU, the importance that the Traces system is operating, and it's operating well from the 1st of October so that there's no interruption in supply chains. We are obviously deploying the necessary staffing resources to meet the UK requirements, and that includes, you know, how we're going about that is through recruitment, redeployment, and temporary contracted services. We have developed detailed process flows and veterinary procedural notices, and they have been drafted on the basis of the information we know from the UK. And as you would have heard in the last hour, there is still further clarity required on certain aspects. And I call out a few areas: the advance notification period, And again, clarity around who can register for Ipaths. So we have been discussing this with our colleagues in the UK, but I think what we'll have to do is we'll have to agree a joint communication and clear messages around what that means. We have done that in reverse in terms of the requirements under the Animal Health Law that came into effect from the 21st of April this year, where we had very good technical engagement between officials in the Irish BCPs and officials in DEFRA. And we clarified what the requirements were, and we agreed on joint communications. And it's very clear in my mind that even now on the 23rd of July that we need to do that around Ipaths and who can register, who's the operator responsible, and also requirements around the advanced notification period for products of animal origin, and also around certification issues in relation to truck and container numbers. We're going to have to agree a joint set of comms on those matters so that there can be absolute clarity for businesses so that they can prepare and that we as the competent authority doing the certification can also prepare. We have been involved in extensive trialling, both internal trials and also end-to-end trials. And again, Lorna is going to go in to the details on that. We have also engaged significantly and invested significantly in training for food business operators and for competent authority staff. There are a number of competent authorities who are providing the certification. And in some cases in the vast majority of cases, veterinary certification is required. So for instance, the HSE supervised some Irish businesses that are exporting composite products and other products of animal origin to the UK or to Great Britain. They don't have veterinary resources, so we will be taking over those businesses and providing the export certification for those staff. The local authority veterinary services are involved in the certification of fish and fish products, and also the local authority veterinary service is involved in the certification of meat and meat products from local authority supervised premises. And I would say to food business operators who are listening, you need to engage in that training, because if you fail to prepare, you can prepare to fail. And it's amazing to me, we did an exercise within my division recently, we cross-checked the numbers of registered food businesses, the vast majority of which have attended the training that we have put on and provided. And it amazed me that there was a small number that hadn't attended any training. So that's a real call out to businesses, attend the training. Again, the case studies, there are case studies being prepared on the basis of the trials that we've conducted, and they will be published. It's clear we can't do trials with every FBO and indeed every supply chain, but nevertheless, those case studies are being prepared and will be published before the end of, or early in August or before the end of July. There has been significant engagement with stakeholder representative bodies, with exporters directly, and also with other government departments and agencies. There's also been significant engagement with the UK authorities, including the Welsh Government around the BCP plans on the West Coast, including the Border Protocol Delivery Group on communications and end-to-end testing, and including obviously DEFRA and HMRC. We've also been engaging with other member states and with the EU, and that engagement has intensified and is ongoing and will continue throughout the next 6 to 12 months. In relation to the land bridge, and obviously the UK land bridge is a very important route to market, in particular for Irish agri-food goods and for short shelf life products. So from the 1st of October 2021, the UK will also introduce requirements on a range of agri-food products transiting the land bridge, including a requirement to have a transit health cert. An original hard copy of the transit health cert must accompany the load, and there must be pre-notification on Ipass. There's no doubt about it, these requirements will add complexity to land bridge movements. Somebody asked about the EU regulations and whether they also apply, and yes, the answer is they do. They also require goods move under customs transit procedure, and they require that SPS controls on animals and goods re-entering the Union. These rules are very detailed, and there is excellent guidance on the gov.ie/Brexit webpage around the requirements, the EU requirements for goods transiting the land bridge. It's fair to say that since the 1st of January, there have been some teething problems with goods transiting the land bridge re-entering France, and there is ongoing political and official engagement with France on the land bridge. Of course, there has also been a significant increase in the number of direct routes from Ireland to our now nearest neighbour, France, within the EU and other member states. And of course, where feasible, those direct routes avoid complexity. It is also true to say that the direct routes are more expensive, and that we expect that more goods will go back over the land bridge. But the requirements that the UK are setting in relation to land bridge consignments will have a significant impact on those decisions by Irish exporters to use the land bridge or not. So what can industry do? I just want to say absolutely clearly to everybody listening, from October the 1st, it will not be business as usual. Again, just a few key reminders to businesses. You must ensure your company is registered with revenue. You have to have an EORI number, and you must be familiar with customs requirements, both Irish and UK, in order to continue exporting to Great Britain. You must ensure your company is registered with the relevant competent authority so that you can request export health certificates. You must ensure your company is registered correctly on traces. To be eligible to export to the UK, you must be on a list of approved establishment and traces that the EU will give to the UK. I would really ask you to review your supply chain and ensure you know who is responsible for each step in the process. Map that out and mitigate any risk that you see along that supply chain, insofar as you can. You need to familiarise yourself with the customs and SPS requirements for exporting goods to Great Britain. If necessary, you're going to have to restructure your business processes to apply for export health certs during normal working hours. The vast majority of export health certs required for the 1st of October require an official veterinarian to sign off on those health certs. There is not enough veterinarians to provide a 24/7 service, and businesses need to be alive to this. So restructure as best you can to ensure that you're looking for health certs within normal working hours. This will require conversations with your customers. A lot of the orders are known well in advance, and a lot are repeat orders, but there are changes to those orders, and they're matters that you need to discuss with your local VI, veterinary inspector. Again, calling out the importance of accuracy. Ensure your export certification application details are correct, and that the FBO has full traceability information and supporting documentation available to support certification requests. You need to identify competent people in your organisation who can do this work. Minimise the number of consignments needing certification by distributing from within Great Britain where possible. And lastly, engage fully with your competent authority and attend the training webinars. There are a range of government supports and resources that are available on gov.ie. There are a range of supports and useful resources on the Department of Agriculture website, including recordings of presentations made by the department staff and details of upcoming webinars. There's also excellent resources on the HSE, FSAI, Board BIA and on the revenue web pages, and I would encourage people to look at those resources and avail of the supports that are available. So I'm going to end my presentation and I'm going to hand over to Lorna Meany, who's head of our Veterinary International Trade Division. And Lorna is going to talk to you about the trials that have been taking place, both internal trials and end-to-end trials with the UK. So I'll hand over to Lorna now. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me. My name is Lorna Meany and I'm the Head of Division in Veterinary Export Certification and International Trade with the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine. Following on from what Louise has just said, I'm going to give a brief presentation on the trials we've been running so far, both internally with our exporters and food businesses and end-to-end with our GB colleagues and exporters. And just to note that these trials are ongoing and we are clarifying issues as we go along with our GB colleagues. So next slide there, please, Ailey. So just our certification systems then, Dapham will implement a systems-based verification model to facilitate export certification to GB from the 1st of October. So the IT systems that will support that certification model will be for meat products, meat preparations, composite products, honey and table eggs. It will be the Traces EU system. For dairy products, including dairy composites, that will be the Dairy Products Certification System, which is our own DPCS system. For fish and fishery products that don't require veterinary certification, there's an existing SFPA process. And for fishery products which require veterinary certification, the Traces EU system will be used. And for plants and plant products, we'll be using our own export certification system or ECS system. Next slide there, please, Ailey. So our ongoing preparations and our trials, we're progressing a range of trials in preparation for the 1st of October. In the first instance, we set up a supply chain working group, and really this was made up of logistics companies, and it was to get an idea to see how the supply chain between Ireland and GB worked and to see how that would fit in with our certification models. So we gathered detailed information on the supply chain and on the logistics networks which support those supply chains. So then from the point of view of food business trials, we organised 15 internal trials so far. And what I mean by internal trials is that's from the point of application for the health cert to when it was actually signed off by the veterinary inspector. We've also engaged in end-to-end trialling. We've had one end-to-end trial with our GB colleagues, and we have further trials planned. And we, as Louisa said, we'll be sharing the learnings from those trials through case studies and through documents and FAQs, which we'll publish on the department website. Next slide there, please, Ailey. So the supply chain working group, then we had 2 plenary meetings where we had large group meetings, and then we had bilateral meetings with individual logistics providers. And the issues and concerns that they raised were that some businesses weren't prepared for the 1st of January changes, and there was a fear that the potential that might apply also from the 1st of October. Then around the turnaround time and speed of availability of health certificates and out of our service. As Louise has already said, we have most of these certs need to be signed off by an official veterinarian. We have a limited resource pool. We have huge experience in providing third country certification. But what we're saying is, in general, certification should take place within normal working hours, and we are very keen to engage with businesses to see how that can work out on the ground. There were concerns around premises without a permanent veterinary presence, how that might work, around groupage, how that was going to work, the just-in-time trade, the timelines involved in meeting customer requirements. And I suppose it's very important to say that it's important to engage with GB customers to see if more notice actually can be given, because the more notice that can be given, the easier it will be. Then the question of the notification to Ipass is a cause of great concern, really. So, you know, what the timeline is around that, who can apply. I think we, as Louisa said, we need very clear comms on that, because some contractual arrangements between exporters and their customers on the GB side require them to look after all the documentation and all the applications involved. So they're contractually obliged to get the consignment across to GB. So it's very important for people involved in those kind of contracts that they can actually engage with the Ipass system. Next slide, please, Ailey. So as regards the internal trials then, we have had 15 individual sessions to date, and our aims were to see, you know, what the preparedness was like around the IT and personnel infrastructure, how food businesses actually engaged with the IT systems, the ability of the food business to provide sufficient traceability documentation to allow certification. And you know, you may have all the documentation, but you need to know where it is, who has it. It needs to be availability. The availability of it needs to be fast when an EHC needs to be generated. So and also more than one person needs access to this data, because if somebody's off sick, you still need to generate your EHC and access to this. The vet will need access to this traceability documentation. So it's about the preparedness of a business around a robust, adaptable business model with very clear, streamlined processes. Next slide there, please, Ailey. So then in around the interaction with Traces, the actual use of the Traces platform, you know, making, which can be very challenging in the first instance to engage with, and preparing an export certificate application on Traces, how actually to do that, and then the whole process around obtaining official vet certification. Next slide there, please, Ailey. So the Traces platform itself is a very efficient system for managing very complex data, but it does require familiarization. And my advice is don't leave that until the 1st of October. We're having lots of training webinars that we've circulated, and it's very, very important that you engage with those, and that your first interaction with Traces should definitely not be on the 1st of October. Next slide there, please, Ailey. FBOs really should all be registered on Traces at this stage and attend all the webinars, as I've said. The Commission have indicated that Traces NT will be available from the 1st of October, and Traces NT is really an upgrade to the Traces Classic platform that's available. So it's a bit like a new version of Word, so a new version of Traces. So the same general principles will apply to it. And the GB certificate templates are set by GB, so they will be the same on Classic and NT. So we're using the Classic platform to progress our training on certification at the moment. Next slide there, please, Ailey. Training on NT has commenced for competent authorities using the intra-trade model platform, and the intra-trade model platform mirrors the functionality that will be used in the export module that will generate UK certification. So training for FBOs on NT will start as soon as possible, and it's envisaged that it will start late August, early September. And FBOs should register as users on NT in preparation for this training. Next slide there, please, Ailey. So just as regards our learnings from the internal trials and export certification preparation, it's very important that you know the model certificate you require, and it's available on the DEFRA website, that you identify the correct CN code for the product you are exporting, that you identify individual requirements for each certificate so you can see what you need to do to comply with the certificate requirements and what the vet needs to support his or her certification. You need access information from suppliers, and so in other words, you need to contact your suppliers to make sure that they are going to be able to supply you with the information you require. I mean, your ingredient suppliers, and you develop a process for gathering this. Just remember, little things like chilled, ambient and frozen, they're mutually exclusive. They probably will require a separate certification, and that individual consignees require individual certs. So, in as far as possible, to limit the demands for certification if a product can be distributed from within the GB, that will help enormously. And just-in-time producers then should liaise with their GB customers and request advance orders and as much advance notice as possible. And just to advise them that it isn't business as normal, there's now an extra step in the chain. An EHC is required for import of the product into GB. So just to be aware that there are constraints around that. Next slide there, please, Ailey. So obtaining the certification, just some general comments that the certifying vet must abide by the principles of certification and the official controls regulation. And it's very important that you liaise with your certifier on the ground, and you advise them of the busy periods and the type of certification, the type of products that you are going to require certification for, that you discuss the supporting documents that will be required for products and the advance notice required. And it's really important for just-in-time products that when you are filling in your documents, when you're making your applications, that you make sure that all the information provided is accurate, because if it's not accurate, then the vet may not be able to certify. That will cause delays, and particularly for just-in-time products, that could cause an issue. And just to say that what came across from the end-to-end trials was that simple loads are easier to certify. So one of the comments back from the end-to-end trials in relation to composite products was that we had very simple certs in that we didn't try and group lots of different products together on one cert, and it made it's a lot easier from the GB point of view as well to clear those certs. So that will cause fewer delays. Next slide there, please, Ailey. So just to recap, the key learnings from our internal trials is don't wait until the 1st of October to start interacting with our systems and with our people on the ground. Identify the right staff within your organisation to interact with traces. They do need IT skills. Ensure you have enough staff to do it. If somebody is out on leave or is sick, you still want to be able to generate your EHC applications. Ensure that the IT structures and business processes are in place to gather the required supporting information, and that it's not held in multiple places, that it's held in a coherent format, and that there is multiple access to it. So again, if somebody is missing, that the whole process doesn't grind to a halt. Local interaction with Dapham staff is vital to identify the certification requirements, and that should be happening straight away. The importance of advanced identification of loads and preparation of paperwork where possible. And I suppose what came across in the trials is the unique position of small, short shelf life producers, to which some of the things we've already discussed are very important, like the Ipass notification and the timing around that. Issues around truck number, container number, all of those things are really important to this process, and we do need comms on those. Next slide, please, Ailey. So the end-to-end trial then, trials with the UK, we are engaging with UK authorities on end-to-end tests, and the first end-to-end trial took place on the 14th of July. 10 consignments were trialled, including one consolidated load requiring 6 certificates, one postal requirement, 1 consignment of fresh meat, 3 composite product consignments, and 4 dairy consignments. Next slide there, please, Ailey. So the aims of the end-to-end trialling would be to confirm UK requirements, to test the ability of FBOs and ourselves to meet these, and relay this information back to industry, to evaluate how FBOs interacted with the traces and DPCS systems, to assess the ability of FBOs to provide certification support documents, to assess if Irish FBOs could interact with the Ipath system, and to identify logistical challenges and supply chain frictions. Next slide there, please, Ailey. And I suppose the trial outcomes, as regards the Ipath system, the outcome was very positive in that the system was found to be extremely user-friendly in terms of interaction, and also it was the Irish exporter could register and provide the Ipath's notification. But following on from a lot of the conversation this morning, we actually need to have clearer comms on that, and so we will need to get those out in the near future. I mean, and as Angela has said in her presentation, which is very valuable, this system is live at the moment, so you can actually go in and interact with it, as long as you don't raise a notification, but you can actually put in some of your data at the moment, and I would recommend that people start interacting with the Ipath system, putting in their data and getting used to using it. There is also a training environment where you could go in and put up practice loads and practice uploading documentation like EHCs, and I would recommend that that happens as well. And from what has been said earlier as well, I was glad to hear that there will be further webinars on Ipaths on the GB side, so that will all be extremely useful to us. Next slide there, please, Ailey. So the trial outcomes using the Ipath's notification system, a few things. It's very important that you ensure that the health certificate has uploaded correctly to Ipaths and can be read once it's uploaded, and it's essential to check that that's done. In one case this didn't happen and it led to an issue, so what we're recommending is that when you upload, when you complete your Ipath's notification, you come out of it again and then you go back in again and just make sure everything is fully readable, because that will allow a lot of delay, that will allay a lot of fears around delays and things like that that could happen if you put up an incomplete Ipath's notification. The other thing is it's even though it is very interactive, just some basic things, it's important that the import notification is submitted. In our trial, one of the notifications was left as draft, which causes issues for the GB side. They can see it, but they can't actually interact with it. It was good to know as well that if the health certificate is not available 24 hours in advance, it can be added later, right up to just before arrival in GB. And that the Ipath's notification can be edited up to arrival time. And it was good to hear there in some of the clarifications at the earlier part of the session, you know, that the truck number, if it changes, could actually be uploaded to the Ipath system, if my understanding is correct, from the 1st of January. And it's just very important to point out as well that whoever notifies Ipath is responsible for the load and will be the point of contact in the event of a problem. Next slide there, please, Ailey. So just another positive note is that for food businesses where substantial background work had been done in advance in organising their support documents, refining their internal process, the trials actually themselves went really smoothly, and 3 consignments had issues with certification. One FBO really couldn't provide sufficient supporting documentation to allow certification in time. So that's a lesson that you need to really look at your processes and make sure you have all that documentation to hand. For one, a courier was delayed, so that's an operational issue. And for the second one, weights were not available or for the third one, weights were not available on time to allow certification of the product. So all those things are around refining your processes to make sure you have all the necessary information to hand to complete the EHC. Next slide there, please, Ailey. Other trial outcomes were that the traces, in certain cases, the traces certificate template compared to the UK certificate template were different. So these issues will be flagged to the EU Traces unit, and they did cause certification issues for us, and led to certification problems also on the GB side. So just to be aware of that. So we will be informing the Traces unit of that. And as I said before, one import notification was left as a draft on Ipass. It wasn't fully submitted, so to be aware, very important to go back in and check. And one export health certificate could not be viewed by the UK authorities on the Ipath system as the file was corrupted when uploaded. So that's you can mitigate against that by going back into the Ipath system and checking that everything is in order. Next slide there, please, Ailey. And just to say thank you very much for listening. If you need help with anything, we have a Dapham Brexit call centre, and the phone number is there on the screen. And there's also an email address, brexitcall@agriculture.gov.ie. And we will also be, you know, as the trials progress, we will be populating our website with information as it comes to us. Thank you very much. So I'll hand you back to Louise.
Thank you very much, Lorna. And can I firstly start by saying I'm going to address the questions that were received from stakeholders that were addressed to the Department of Agriculture. I'm going to go down through them before trying to capture some of the questions that have come in that last session, some of which are for the UK rather than ourselves. I just also want to introduce colleagues who are on the line. You might just put on your videos if you don't mind. I have Michael Moore, Micheál O'Mahony, Fiona Reardon, Rob Doyle, Tony Devlin, Hazel Sheridan, who is head of our Import Controls Operations Division. And there was a query in from somebody in relation to some import operations matters. I have Damien Flynn, our Agricultural Councillor in London, soon to be head of Brexit and International Trade Division. We're going to switch roles. Well, I'm not going to London, but Damien's coming in here from the start of September. And then we have Conor O'Mahony from our Dairy Meat and Milk Policy Division, who looks after some of the dairy certification. So in terms of the questions that were received, so one, how will the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine support implementation of the requirements laid out in the UK border operating model published on the 20th of July, in particular the requirement for product of animal origin goods that the consignment to be inspected by an official veterinarian in order to verify that the consignment's contents meet the health requirements of the destination country. So firstly, the official controls regulation governs and sets the rules around certification, and it allows for a systems-based approach to certification. And that is a model that has worked very well across the globe, and that's the model that Lorna has said in her presentation that we're going to follow. Question number 2, when the health cert is ready for collection, will Dapham send an electronic copy of the health cert to the exporter? Yes is the answer. If yes, is it sent around the same time as the original health cert is collected? So as soon as the health cert is generated, it is going to be sent, uploaded and sent to the exporter. You know, when it's collected is a matter for the FBO. Some people send a courier, but as soon as we generate it, we're going to send it. Does the exporter need to apply for a health cert 7 or 10 days in advance? And are these working days? There have been some mixed messages on this. The ask is for 5 working days, but this is just the initial application. So it's really about getting a heads up from our point of view that the consignment is going to Great Britain, and obviously we're very much aware that it's only closer to the time that the you know, detailed consignment requirements, including, for example, the weights or the container number is known. But for us, it allows us to start looking at maybe some of the supporting documentation and things like that. So get it in well in advance. Should the FBOs contact their UK importers? UK customers to make sure they are aware of the UK pre-notification requirements to be done on Ipass, i.e. the UK's new import control system. Well, firstly, let me say that communication between the Irish exporter and the GB importer is key. They are a key part of this supply chain, and it's important that everybody knows who's responsible for each step in the process. From my point of view, there are some mixed messages around Ipass that we absolutely have been endeavouring to bottom out, and we need to bottom out completely in the period ahead. We know from the trials that an Irish exporter can register. We know that they can do the advanced notification, but it's also clear that so can a GB importer, and that's fine, that's understood. We need to have clarity around who's responsible for the consignment, which is a key factor that I understand the UK authorities will want. But in my opinion, we need to have absolute clarity on that. And I think that both the Irish and UK authorities need to work together to try and bottom this out for once and for all. If the FBO uses an Irish meat agent to procure customers in the UK, who should notify Ipass for the pre-notification of the importer? Is it the meat agent, the UK customer, or the Irish FBO? Well, in my opinion, it can be all three. But the key here is whoever notifies Ipass is responsible for the load. At least that was my understanding. Including engaging with the BCP, including matters in relation to if the consignment is rejected or if there are queries on the consignment. Should the exporting Irish FBOs all be registered in Ipass in any case, and how do they do this? You know, I would say yes, taking a cautious approach in order to mitigate any risk in the supply chain. The links are there for the production environment and they can be circulated. And what I would say is register users. Once you go in, you should register users in your business. So you don't want just one person within the business responsible for doing all of these Ipass notifications. I would add the details for your customers, but don't raise any notifications until just before the 1st of October, okay? Where FBOs transit the UK en route to EU, will traces, export health certs be required for these consignments to re-enter the EU, or will the GB transit certs be sufficient? So GB transit certs on their own will not be sufficient. There are EU and UK requirements for animals and goods that transit the land bridge. The detailed information on what those requirements are available on the www.gov.ie/Brexit webpage. And the devil is in the detail. Read them. And obviously, there will be hopefully a further webinar in what month are we in now? July, in August maybe, or in September, hopefully, or sorry, not in August, in September, I beg your pardon, on the land bridge, because clearly the land bridge is a very important route to market. With regard to the specific training session on individual export health certs, will these be circulated or published? So, in relation to the specific training sessions on the individual export health certs, they are live sessions, mics on, very interactive. So because of that, we're not recording them, but we will publish the presentations that are made at those webinars. Obviously, we have done a number of webinars around traces and other systems, and some very useful webinars on our website and indeed on the website of other agencies, and they are on the system. They're ready to be used, and I would really encourage people to look at those links. And again, the links to those pages are on the last page of my presentation, which will be circulated to attendees. With regard to further testing, are there plans to carry out a day in the life and a week in the life of tests across the various sectors? These tests should be end-to-end with industry, Dapham, DEFRA, including the border control posts. Well, firstly, we are doing end-to-end tests. We are living a day in the life of our FBOs, and we've engaged with them on those trials, both internal and on the end-to-end tests. In relation to involving the border control posts, so the border control posts aren't operational at the moment, and they won't be from the 1st of October, but there are plans to do live end-to-end tests involving the UK authorities and their border control posts in advance of the go-live dates for the BCPs. But I should also manage expectations here. We clearly can't do a trial with everybody, with every food business operator, but what I can commit to is that the learnings from the trials will be shared. Lastly, I think Ella picked up, are there owners in Dapham and Dara for the prepared consumer foods category, and can we work together to ensure we have an end-to-end solution that is fully tested and works? This group could also be a point of escalation to resolve issues post October 1st and 1 January. So we did have an escalation group. There was senior officials that met in the early days pre 1 January and since the 1st of January on the import side. And that group is now operational and is dealing with issues that are coming up in relation to the UK import requirements. So I can assure you that we will engage. There are leads in the department, that's Brexit and International Trade Division, and then Lorna Meany in Veterinary International Trade Division. And apologies, I see Tony Devlin on the line as well, another key person on the team, who's head of Veterinary Public Health Inspection System. So and there are others on board. So yes is the answer, there will be teams. So there were the questions we got in, and there were the answers that I've just provided. So I'm going back up to around 10 o'clock. So again, some questions around the so where you have Incoterms, where the Irish exporter is responsible for completing the formalities in order to get the product into GB. So I've addressed that. We'll have to come back to that. We'll have to agree that with our UK colleagues, some joint comms. Cormac, surely the logic is to use the fridge or trailer number on the EHC, which will not change, rather than the truck number. 12 thumbs up beside that. Can I ask somebody on the UK side, please, to take that? I'm not sure, Ella, who you want to address that to. Or do you want to take that yourself?
No, Louise, I think that if it's okay, we might take that one away and then repost it when we send out the ones that we haven't responded to as well. So I think that we might not have the right colleague on the line anymore, if that's all right with you, Louise.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thanks very much, Ella. So I have Celine O'Neill and Caroline O'Keefe on the line, and it's asking, though, I'm not sure, but just to be clear, can you confirm, will an XI CHED reference be accepted when completing customs for imports to ROI for products of animal origin and live animals being transported GB to NI to ROI? It is not accepted at present. I don't know, Hazel or Celine, do one of you want to come in on that?
Hi Louise, sorry, just unmuting myself there. Yeah, it sounds like that person has had a technical issue, maybe in including the health certificate number. So if the person could send the query or get in touch directly with us at brexitqueries@revenue.ie, and we'll go through the scenario with them and make sure it's not a systems issue. In principle, yes, the reference is acceptable because the check will be done in Northern Ireland, so there's no need for a second check to be done in Ireland when the goods arrive here. And what we'll be asking those kind of movements to do is to upload the part of the CHED that has been certified in Northern Ireland to say that the check has been conducted, to upload that with their import declaration in Ireland so that we can clear those goods and be satisfied that the SPS check has been completed. But if they can make contact with us directly, we'll work through the issue with them.
Okay, that's fine. Thanks very much, Celine. So maybe if you can put into the reply on that, just that email address. And what we do is, because I think this issue has come up, and I know it has come up. I do think that we need just to provide some comms around that for the trade. So if goods are transiting the UK, Northern Ireland to GB to EU, or Ireland, GB, EU, or vice versa, do BCPs need to pre-notify on Ipaths if the goods are not for the UK market? So firstly, it's not the BCPs, it's the person responsible for the consignment. And Ella, I'll leave it to you, but my understanding is they do need to pre-notify on Ipaths, even if the goods are transiting the UK market.
That's my understanding too, Louise, but I think that for the ones that are remaining for the UK to respond to, we'll get them in writing to you so that we can have the policy leads confirm them. I know that we ran out of time in our section, but I think that's probably the most helpful way so that everyone has it in writing and firmed up. Thank you.
Okay, do ABP consignments going to the UK need to be lodged on traces? No, I don't think. Not lodged on traces. So well, maybe just let's be clear about that. If you need a health cert, okay, so let's be clear. Like I'm thinking of traces from a pre-notification point of view. If you require a health cert, the health cert has been generated on traces, and therefore you need to be registered on traces, and you need to apply for that health cert on traces. In terms of so that's what the traces aspect is for. If shipping 3+ times per week from Ireland to GB, in order to send the hard copy of the Dapham cert with the consignment, what is the lead-in time necessary for the FBO to apply for their cert and receive it in time for shipping realistically? So look, I've answered that already, but I'm going to let maybe Lorna or somebody else, Tony, come in, or Connor come in on that.
Yeah, I'll just come in there on some of it, and maybe I'll let Tony follow up. But I mean, from the point of view, we're saying 5 working days notice. So in as far as possible, so that you would provide us with all the information you absolutely can as far in advance as possible. That's the key to this, really. And then supply us with the more granular detail which will be needed for certification, you know, closer to the time. So I suppose it's about making sure you have a process set up that you can supply us with the information that we need to do the certification and have all the background documentation in order. The other thing is that the information you supply us is accurate. That's really important as well. So you need to have your process, you need to apply as soon as you know that you have a load. You need to have all the background information in order. And as a general rule, we're saying 5 days notice. Then I think at a local level, you need to be engaging with your certifier on the ground and, you know, identifying your business need to them in how your business works, and then see, you know, what kind of timelines are deliverable. I'll let Tony come in there on that, on the operations end of it.
Thanks. Yeah, I suppose it's really down to local arrangements. So you will probably have repeat customers, and you will know what's happening really in advance. And the quicker we get that information, the better. So you must complete part 1 of the trace certificate. That's the application, and attach all the documents. So the sooner you have those documents ready and submit that, then the sooner they can be reviewed by the veterinary inspector. So if you have multiple loads going to multiple customers, but they're repeat customers, the process is really quite straightforward. So it's a matter of getting used to the trace system, having your customers and your details already uploaded and ready, and then that will simplify the process for the certifying vet. So probably the only delay then will be on the actual documentation that is attached. So whenever that's ready, you submit that for certification. But you can alert the local veterinary inspector and local arrangements to understand how often and how frequent and at what times the loads are going. And it will become, to a certain extent, routine once you get it up and running on the system. So it depends on the type of product you're producing, on the complexity of the traces cert. So again, that'll be back to discuss that with your local vet. Get, as was mentioned before, involved in trialing the systems and preparing information on traces that can be reviewed in a kind of a mock system, but that you have an idea then of the timelines that it takes to not only for the veterinary inspector to sign off, but also for you to prepare the documentation and have all the relevant documentation attached to the traces. So hopefully that helps. Thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Tony, and go ahead, Connor, go ahead.
Just put in here, there's been, just to clarify something, there's a lot of talk, quite rightly, about traces, but just in case there's any confusion, traces is used for meat products. For dairy products, you will be applying for UHCs on the DPCS, which is the Dairy Product Certification System. So for anybody who's currently applying for export certs to the rest of the world, you'll be going into the DPCS and you'll be selecting GB the same as you would for any other country. So I just want to clarify that point in case people are walking away with thinking that traces is going to be used for dairy certification. It won't. The same process as both Lorna and Tony discussed. Apply in advance, give us as much information as you have at that point in time. You will then be allowed to apply at a later stage as well when you have the outstanding information such as your transport and your container details. So it's to give us, we don't want to have an avalanche of unknown certification requirements coming in. That's why we're asking people for advance notice. And so the system allows for 2 stages. One telling us when you're going to have a consignment going, your consignee details, your product details, etc. And then we can examine that and we know when that's coming. And then when you get your final details in terms of container numbers, transport details, ideally the day before dispatch or the day of dispatch, you'll be allowed to submit those details again at that stage. So I don't know if that's an actual question asked by anyone, but that's just might be a useful point. Thanks.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful, Connor. So Ella, again, there's 2 here. Could you please could we check the 1 working day pre-notification is Monday to Friday? Is it Monday to Friday, i.e. the working day? What happens at the weekend and how is that classed? Regards, Alan. And then is it only the health cert that is to be uploaded to the Ipass pre-notification? So 2 questions around pre-notification, Ella. Can you pick those up? And I know you said you're going to come back around products of animal origin, but just maybe repeat again what you can tell these people.
So I think definitely we want to come back in writing to these, and I'm conscious now that our colleagues are off the line. But I think that, are we talking here about, because I no longer have the questions in front of us.
It's around pre-notification, and is it a 1 working day, 24 hours? What is that? You know, obviously it could be less than that. In other words, can you go in and do the pre-notification and then follow up closer to the time of export with the further details? So maybe come back on that. That'd be great.
I think so. I know that from the 1st of October, you need to be providing an electronic copy of the EHC to the GB importer to upload onto the notification in Ipath, so that those remote documentary checks can be carried out. But of the actual lead-in times, grateful if we can follow up in writing. I think it's a useful thing to have in writing for traders anyway.
Okay, listen, I'm conscious, I know we're over time, but look at it, there's a lot of people still on the line, so I'm going to keep going through these questions. Can I ask Hazel Sheridan, our head of import operations, to come in and answer a query that John has raised in relation to the clearance process in Dublin Port, in particular where you have multiple agency hits on a consignment. If Hazel's there, or maybe Caroline O'Keefe either. So have I still got Hazel on the line?
I don't think you have, Louise. She had connectivity issues. She's been in and out a few times.
Have we Caroline O'Keefe on the line from Revenue? I think we have.
Yes, Hazel, Caroline here, or Louise. No, just to say like that we work with trade on an ongoing basis on improving our procedures in the port for clearing goods. As any of the seminars and webinars that we've done, trade will be aware like that we have improved the communications between the different agencies, in improving our IT systems, giving access to the other agencies now to the revenue systems. And our expectation is, and the feedback we're getting is now, that those delays are now not down to systems or procedural issues anymore. So it's a specific instance that somebody wants to contact us about, and we can see what issues arose, and we can go back then and see if we can retrofit something into that. But in general, our understanding is now, based on feedback from the trade, is that those new procedures are working efficiently.
Okay, thank you very much, Caroline. So there's a question here about composite products with China origin imported to the UK, exported to ROI. Can you tell me what changes on the 1st of October and later in January? Well, firstly, the 1st of October and later in January changes are UK import requirements, and you've inquired about the EU import requirements for composite products with a China origin coming to the UK and then coming on to the ROI. There is detailed information on our website in relation to the requirements for importing composite products into the EU. There were some changes from the 21st of April, and there are further changes that are coming in later in August. What I would do is look at those details on the website. If you don't get the answer you're looking for, contact the Brexit Call, please, email address that was at the end of Lorna's presentation. Can the cost for completing SBS certification prior to exporting and the cost for completing the checks at the BCP be explained? What are the costs? How do exporters and importers find out what the costs are, and who will be liable for paying the costs? So let me speak from an Irish perspective. Costs for export certification. At the moment, Ireland, Dapham charges a fee for providing an export health cert for live animals. We are not charging fees for the provision of export certification from the 1st of October, but that may change in the future. There is a significant cost associated with generating export certs. But from our point of view, there will be no fees for export certs from the 1st of October. That is different, obviously, in terms of the BCP checks, again, on goods entering the EU, so entering ROI, there are fees for documentary ID and physical checks. They're laid out in Annex 4 of Regulation 625/2017, and there's detail on our website as to what those BCP fees are. I'm going to hand over to Ella to talk about the fees on entry into the UK BCPs, and you might talk about the charges that are being charged for SBS for certs from GB to Ireland, and they are quite significant in some cases. So go ahead, Ella.
Thanks, Louise. I'm afraid I don't have those in front of me, but I really would like to come back on that in writing again. And I think that we have, it seems, many to respond to in writing. So yeah, I think that the DEFRA colleagues that joined us for the first part of this webinar, they've now dialed off because that section was finished. So yeah, grateful if we can take those away, and then we'll be able to respond in full. And we're happy to then take any follow-up questions on those too. Thanks, Louise.
Thanks, Ella. So a question for Dapham from a composite products. With the manufacturing cycle being a 7 days process, but the certification process not, what supports will be in place for the significant cost of stock build and holding on site? When Dapham say business need to change their model, the cost of these may be more than a number of businesses are likely to be able to bear. Example, a truck park of extra pallet spaces on site are significant investment, which ultimately means higher food prices for consumers. Resourcing the process of certification has to be far more cost effective than every exporter in the country investing in new space and cost. What plans are in place to get a fit for purpose certification team and processes as an alternative. Who would like to take that? Tony, it's your lucky day.
I suppose, yeah, you can hear me, yes?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, there's a lot there, I suppose. Look, we only have a limited resource of veterinary inspectors for certification process. We've increased the resource in that element. Look, there are changes as a result of Brexit that I suppose we have no control over, and everybody is changing, everybody is learning, and there are, I suppose, costs, hidden costs. I really can't say much more than that, other than that from our side, we're doing everything we can. We're working tirelessly to try and get a streamlined process between ourselves, and we're working closely with our UK colleagues to tease out the issues and make the process smooth and reduce delays so that products can transport as quickly and efficiently as possible. But there will be changes, and we acknowledge that, and there probably will be extra costs, but I suppose some of that is outside our control. So I can't offer any more comfort to the question. Thanks.
Okay. Look, I think there is engagement happening also locally, and you need to engage with your local VI around the actual requirements in your business as well. So look, there's a lot of questions that we've kind of covered before. And I'm conscious now that it's nearly 11:20. So what I am going to suggest is that we pick up on the other questions that are in the chat, and we will respond. The answers will be circulated to all who have attended the presentation or today's webinar. Look, on my behalf, I'd like to thank our colleagues in the UK for their ongoing engagement and cooperation, including on today's event. I'd like to sincerely acknowledge the work that has been done across the country, the length and breadth of the country, by both industry and by competent authorities in order to try and meet the certification challenge. It is the case, it is not going to be business as usual. I think if I've learned anything since the start of the year, it is that by working together and collectively, that we can try and address and overcome the significant challenges that lie ahead. From a strategic point of view, Ireland has significant ambitions to grow our agri-food exports over the next 10 years. The UK is our nearest and most important trading partner, and that will continue to be the case in the years ahead. Agri-food businesses, the length and breadth of this country, provide employment and contribute greatly to the rural economy. And I can assure you that no stone will be left unturned or is being left unturned in order to meet the certification challenge and adhere to the UK import requirements. I would finish also that the art of politics is interesting, and it's all about the possible. And I showed you in our slide the impact that the checks are having on controls in Irish ports. Obviously, an SPS agreement, if the political will and a way could be found to having such an agreement, would reduce the impact of the non-tariff barriers on trade for the benefit of all exporters in the UK and in Ireland. And I leave on that note. So thank you all very much and have a nice day.